So welcome guys to the third and final in our Positive Psychology series for 2013. I really enjoyed this series. I think you guys have really gotten some new distinctions out of it, and I'd be curious to know, for anyone who's been with us on this journey, I want to check in with what you've learned so far. What does positive psychology mean to you? Or what are some of the distinctions that you've gotten from these classes? I'd love to check in with you and see where we're at as a group with our understanding of positive psychology. What are some of the things you've noticed since starting these classes? Have you shared any of this information with clients or friends or family? Gosh, big class tonight, a few more people joining. I'm sure everyone's madly typing. I'm going to assume that's what's happening. So in the meantime, I'll just say g'day. Okay, wonderful. Thank you guys. Lovely comments coming through. So Leslie's saying using positive words can make so much change. Yes. Isn't it interesting, Leslie, that sort of whitewash, yeah, you just have to think positive. It's not really about that, is it? And yet, when you do use those positive words, it does change your experience of the world, doesn't it? It's an interesting thing. Paul shared some ideas on gratefulness with a friend. Yeah, Paul, do you know what? I think, and I say this about a lot of things in coaching, I know I'm hopeless, but I must say, I think if there was one thing that I could share with everyone in the world before I departed this beautiful planet, it would be just to focus on being grateful. It just changes everything. Frank is saying, stay positive, focus on what you do want, not what you don't want. Yes, Franca, that is it. And that's not necessarily an easy linguistic habit to break, because some of us have been doing it all our lives without realising the consequences. Franca, funnily been saying that a lot to people in the week, so about gratefulness. Beautiful. Okay, good. So some lovely distinctions, some lovely learnings. Let's continue. And actually, I've kind of saved the best till last. Tonight, oh, hang on, before we go on with tonight's material, just a reintroduction to positive psych for anyone who hasn't been with us. Okay, so positive psychology is a recent branch of psychology, and it's focused on building strong individuals, families and communities, and it's actually applied a lot in schools and workplaces and places like hospitals and learning institutions, community institutions. So it has a lot of broad application in institutions and places where people gather, community-based organisations. Positive psychologists seek to find and nurture genius and talent, and the objective of positive psychology is to make normal life more fulfilling. So it's not necessarily about healing something that's broken, it's actually more about taking what's great and making it even better. And it focuses on four main topics: positive experiences, and that's what we'll be focusing on tonight. And that book flow that's been on that slide that whole time, that's what we're going to be talking about tonight, that theory of flow. It also focuses on enduring psychological traits, positive relationships, and, as I said, positive institutions. Okay. So, what is this thing called flow? And why is it something that someone would write a book about? Why is it relevant for us as coaches and for our study of positive psychology? Flow is the feeling of complete engagement in a creative or playful activity. And actually, I'm just going to press the pause button here for just one moment, coaches, because I had a question. Yeah, okay, so someone was just asking, can I just repeat what I was talking about at the start there? So positive psychology is a branch of psychology that focuses very much on taking what's great in our lives and making it better, or taking a normal baseline life and looking at what are the strategies that really happy people use and how can we employ those strategies in our sort of normal everyday life to make it happier. It's kind of like Supersize My Life, if you want to think about it that way. It is a branch of psychology that does not focus on healing past hurts or dealing with any psychological illnesses. Does that make sense? So it's a separate branch of psychology, but it's all part of the same discipline. And it is focused on, here's the thing, for a regular everyday person who's experiencing life in kind of a normal way and tootling along and thinking everything's pretty cool, they wouldn't go and see a psychologist. They would tend to see a coach if they wanted to make their life better, if they wanted to increase their happiness and satisfaction with life. And psychologists actually around starting as early as the 50s, but the movement really gained some momentum around the late 70s, early 80s, started to say, well, hang on, what we're actually doing is focusing on only one part of the human experience. We're focusing on only what needs to be healed rather than looking at what could be improved upon and what could be made even more amazing. So that's where the discipline of positive psychology has come from. And actually one of the very, very instrumental researchers defined this thing called flow. And flow is the feeling of complete engagement in a creative or playful activity. And that's what we're going to be looking at tonight. And I'd love to start now by taking a little survey. All of us have had this experience called flow. All of us, and many times during our lives. The experience that you lose yourself in for hours at a time where you don't even realize that time has gone past and you're just 100% engaged and everything else fades away. So what is that activity for you? And I'd love everyone to answer here. What is that activity for you when you just get so engaged, your brain is so focused that everything else just fades away and time stands still? Jamie's saying it happens to me all the time when I'm reading a good book. Yeah, nice one, Jamie. But reading is a very common one. What else have we got? Mona's saying oil painting, lovely, creative. Adrian's saying ballroom dancing, introspection, learning. Leslie saying taking time out with my kids. Oh, sorry, talking with my kids. Paul saying reading for me too. Ray, talking about coaching with other students in the course. Yep. Andrew, reading about a passion in life. David, when I'm writing a consultation paper at work and I get really engrossed providing advice to help the client. Ricardo, doing what you love. Yeah, but Ricardo, what is it? What is that one activity for you? Or are there many? I want to take a bit of a survey and see for us as coaches, what is it? What's the thing that we all love doing that where just time stands still? I want a specific answer here. Angie's saying hula hooping, breastfeeding a baby, writing, making love, crafting with the kids, dancing. Oh, Ange, beautiful. Andrew, line dancing. Paul, listening to audio learning, chatting with Ray. Yeah, Ricardo, I know it's many. I want a specific answer, please. You're not getting off the hook. Give me one. Yasmin, dancing, coaching, playing with my boys. Layla, exercising, coaching, doing my job, which I love. David, snow skiing. Sonus, doing everything with full presence. Ricardo, I love being myself and believing in myself. Yep. Okay, still not getting a specific answer, Ricardo. So an activity that you do where you just lose sense of time. It could be reading, writing, walking, talking with friends. There are lots of different things it could be. Your ability to get specific, Ricardo, is something that's going to help you in your coaching practice. So now's a great time to practice that. Ray, football, participating in physical activity. It seems to be quite common for you guys. Physical activity is a really key one. Etienne, writing, paddleboarding, golfing. Leslie, working outside on the farm. Lauren, writing my blog for my website. I get so in the moment listening to music and writing. Jamie, swimming in the ocean. Andrew, having a spa or massage. Ange, Facebooking. When we look at the definition of flow later on, you might see that that doesn't quite fit in, although it's certainly easy to get lost. Okay, Ricardo, developing my coaching business. Awesome. Franca, spending time with the family, friends, reading, singing. Ricardo, website and promoting. Paul, my girlfriend gets this very strongly with painting. Franca, gardening. Ricardo, playing with the kids. Raywin, oh, okay. Sonus, Meditation and Reiki, awesome. Meditation's a very, very common one. Layla, at this very time is when I'm coaching. Franca, massage, yes, love that. David, cooking. Ricardo, creating. Now, I haven't heard from, there's a couple of people I haven't heard from. John, Bryony, a couple of people haven't answered yet. We would love to get all of your answers. It would be wonderful to have full participation. Rayon, when I meditate or bike riding. And guys, for me, same. A lot of common ones there. I love kayaking. I lose sense of time when I'm, you know, I'm going to sound like a complete dork, but my favourite one is actually training. I believe training is my meditation. When I'm in a room with people, I'll just lose all sense of time, and it's such an incredible experience. I do sculpting. I lose sense of time there as well. It's often the creative pursuits, and this is where this first came to be something that was researched in the creative world. Here we go. John, meditating and running till I can only focus on breathing. Wow, fantastic. Okay, awesome comments. Thanks, guys. So you all understand what I mean, or you all have an appreciation of what I mean by the word flow, because you've experienced it at some point in your life. So let's delve into the research and have a look at the different components of flow and why it's important for us to know about it. Now, before we do that, a little business to take care of. Please write down tonight's code, P82F for Fred. P82F for Fred. That's the code for tonight's class. And now let's keep moving. Okay. Now, the psychologist Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. Wow, I don't know if I said that right. I practiced it on my walk today and I still don't know if I said it right. I'm going to call him Mihai with absolute respect and gratitude because I don't want to do his last name any disservice. It's a Hungarian name, so if I've got any Hungarian heritage folk on the call, please forgive me if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. Okay, Mihai became very interested in our ability to do this as humans back in the 1950s, and he began his research into the happy state that he called flow, the pinnacle of the experience of happiness, that it's so great everything else ceases to matter. He's the author of many books and over 120 articles, and Martin Seligman, who is really considered one of the founding fathers of the movement of positive psychology, and he's the former president of the American Psychological Association, and he also heads up one of the only 4 positive psychology master's degrees in the world, still to this day in the States. He described Mihai's work as being world-leading in positive psychology. So his work happened just before the explosion of people being interested in this kind of stuff. So he really is the granddaddy of it all. So if you've been interested in the classes over the last 3 weeks, then his books are really great to get a hold of. So flow, what is it? It's the mental state of operation in which a person performing an activity is fully immersed in a feeling of energized focus, full involvement, and enjoyment in the process of the activity. In essence, flow is characterized by complete absorption in what you're doing. Now, it's been some of the earliest research in the field of positive psychology, and the concept has been widely referenced across a variety of fields, and it's actually been used in a number of different disciplines. And you can describe it in a number of ways. They're up on the screen there. So, you know, you could say, well, it's completely focused motivation. It's single-minded immersion. It's the ultimate experience in harnessing the emotions in the service of performing and learning. It's positive, energized, and aligned with the task at hand. And it's a feeling of spontaneous joy and rapture while you're performing a task. Now, this is where it's important that we understand the difference between flow and something called hyperfocus. Hyperfocus has many of the same characteristics. The difference is that hyperfocus is not usually described as a positive experience. For example, spending too much time playing video games or on Facebook, or getting sidetracked and pleasurably absorbed by one aspect of an assignment or task, and then that's to the detriment of the rest of the task. So you end up doing yourself a disservice because you've been distracted. So flow is all of the stuff that you see on the screen without any negative consequences. And hyperfocus is a lot of the stuff you see on the screen, but it has, once you get out of that state and you come back to the real world, you go, oh no, now I've wasted all that time, or wow, I forgot to cook dinner, or I forgot, I've been so absorbed that there's been negative consequences. Can I have some yeses that you're getting the distinction there? There's a bit of a difference. Cool. Yep, getting some yeses. Thank you very much, guys. So why is this important for me to talk to you about? Because it's something that at times, I believe certainly in your own coaching practice, you're going to experience that. And many coaches, especially new coaches, definitely describe that they experience flow when they're coaching. And I would have to say that, yeah, I think I still experience flow when I'm coaching. Not perhaps in every session, but in a session where there's some really great connection going on. And so this is something for you to be aware of, that you're enjoying and appreciating while you're experiencing more and more of it in your coaching business. And also, if you're talking to a client about having those kind of peak experiences, which is the kind of conversations that we often have with our clients, then if they're wanting to increase the amount of flow in their lives, it's important for them to understand that the distinction is flow is about all of this great stuff with no negative consequences. Hyperfocus is this great stuff, but then there's that other side of it. There's that sort of flip side of the coin. A couple of comments here. Flow is a highly creative state. Yes, Etienne, that's actually where the research began, and we'll be getting to that in just a moment. And Angie's saying, I can definitely see the link with the 4 levels of experience. Yeah, definitely, Ange. Awesome. Okay. So what are some of the words that we use to describe this state in the modern world? Well, this is the kind of thing that we might be saying. We might say we're in the moment, or we're in the zone. Maybe we're on a roll. We're really wired in. We're in the groove. We're on fire. We're centered, or we're in flow. These are the kinds of experiences that when people describe them, this is like a little signal to listen out for. This is where your antenna should go up in a coaching session. If you have a client who's who's describing to you an experience where they're saying, yeah, I was really in the zone, I just lost all track of time, they're actually describing, as long as there were no negative consequences to that, they're actually describing a flow experience. David, in trance, potentially, and it would depend on the situation. And so trance is a big word, yeah? And we actually work around, we work with trance a lot. And actually, guys, from NLP that we all actually walk around in trance all of the time. You're all partially in trance right now, as am I, delivering this, because we're kind of focused on one thing and we're allowing other things to go on around us with no consequence. David, I think one of the key distinctions here is it would be a trance experience where there's that spontaneous experience of joy and connection. So I think the answer is yes, but don't forget you can also be in trance watching the telly for 5 hours at a time. Yeah? And for me, I wouldn't describe that as a flow experience. And when we see the qualifiers, I think we'll all see that that's not quite it. So I think the answer is yes, it would depend. So if flow equals being lost in happiness, then how do we go about getting it? All right, so Mihai in the 50s, he was a psychologist, and he became very interested in the work of artists who would describe having an experience of getting lost in their work. He really wanted to understand this experience that these artists, especially painters it turned out, so who was the painter in the group, would they would describe feeling lost in their work, and they would get so immersed in their work that they would disregard their need for food, water or sleep. And they'd go into this really creative kind of space where nothing else really mattered, and they just were completely and utterly focused on the joy and the incredible experience of doing this painting. And it wasn't just painters, but it was quite often painters. So I think there's something there in terms of the physical connection with it. For me, I see a lot of the flow activities are actually physical activities, or partially physical activities. And Mihai said, okay, well, I want to understand this. I'm seeing these people, because he was living at the time in Italy, I believe, and he was surrounded by very creative people, and he really wanted to understand this experience so he could assist his clients, his patients, to experience more of this themselves. And through his initial research with hundreds of creative people, and he then actually duplicated the study when he moved to the University of Chicago years later, and then he broadened it to thousands of people of all types, he discovered that there were 6 things that all had to happen at the same time for an experience to be considered a flow experience. So those 6 things are up on the screen right now. Intense and focused concentration on the present moment. A merging of action and awareness. So it's that moment where you don't even have to think about what the next move is, you just kind of do it. It's a quantum thing, right? It's a loss of reflective self-consciousness. So it's that time when you just don't even give a shit what anyone else is saying or thinking or doing. It's all about what your next move is. A sense of personal control or agency over the situation or activity. So this is where you have mastered an activity, or you feel free within an activity, so that you feel, yep, I am in control over this, or I'm at one with this, and I'm allowing myself to go forth with it and trusting myself. You have the distortion of the temporal experience, which is where your experience of time is altered, as we've been speaking about. And the activity itself is intrinsically rewarding. So it's not something that necessarily has to have an end state where other people are going to pat you on the back. It's creating the thing or doing the activity that is within itself the reward. Now, this came from research across all ages, all occupations, nationalities, genders, and so on. Huge, big, wide sample group. And they all confirmed to him, yes, these are the 6 conditions that have to be happening when I'm in that experience of flow. So now I want to ask you again. Think about the answers that you gave me, and think about the times when you've really experienced flow, and looking at these 6, is there one particular activity for you, or 2 particular activities for you that you really feel meet these criteria? Let's get a little bit more specific about it. Ricardo, when I coach. Paul, scuba diving. Yeah, for me, guys, it's, let me think. It's probably still sculpting. It's still training. It may not be kayaking, because that's not, oh, it could be. Interesting, isn't it? Bike riding, Raywin. Mona, oil painting and sketching. Lauren, car racing. Awesome. Ricardo, when I entertain. Dancing for Andrew. Yes, Andrew, that's right. I'd forgotten you're a very keen dancer, aren't you? I'd forgotten that. David, Tai Chi or yoga. Yes, I think yoga is one of them. Ange, definitely making love. I can't believe no one else has said this. Haha. Ange, good on you, darling. I was going to say it later. And my wonderful husband's not even home at the moment, so I can speak about it freely. Or maybe not. Adrian, ballroom dancing. Leslie, when I'm working and pulling out blackberries on the farm, the satisfaction of a clear garden is rewarding. Yes, lovely. Sonus, Reiki. Ray. Yeah, cool. Martial arts, doing a kata, doing a form. Yep. Fantastic. So you're seeing now that there are certain distinctions around what really qualifies as a flow experience. And of course, naturally, they're all experiences that we enjoy. It can't be a flow experience unless it's something you enjoy. And I think the distinction for some of us is a lot of us, and this is me included, guys, I'm 100% honest about it, get very attached to outcomes and get very attached to the satisfaction of achieving something. And flow is not about achieving something. Flow is about enjoying the experience for itself, regardless of what the outcome is at the end. Jamie saying exercising, swimming, dancing. John, it's running. I wish it was running for me, John. I really do. Layla, it's also connected with 55% of physiology non-verbal communication. Layla, I didn't know that. I must have missed that part of the book, or not picked up that part of the book. Yeah, cool. Okay. So, oh, sorry, a couple more questions here. When I run, though, time goals, when I run through user time goals, is that non-flow? It's also in trying to improve your time. John, what you're having there is an experience that's flow in the moments where you forget about the time, and then you click out of flow when you're remembering the time, even though the time is a part of the overall experience. So you would, if you are wired up as part of the study, you would be having the experience that sometimes they were classified as flow and sometimes not. You'd be switching back between the two, back and forth. Etienne's saying surrendering. Oh, Layla's asking no, is it? Layla, I'm not sure, but if you look at the answers we're getting, a lot of them are physical, aren't they? Or at least partially physical. In fact, most of them are very physical. Okay. So then, to a psychologist and professor, our friend Mihai, who's at the forefront of this new field of positive psychology, after he'd defined what these experiences were, the natural question for him then became, well, what activities are most likely to induce this type of feeling? And can we increase the feeling of flow in our daily lives to increase the quality of our existence? Now, one of the interesting things he found was that the more you focus on getting in flow, the less likely you are actually able to do it. So it's like a seesaw. The moment you start thinking, oh, look at that, I'm in flow, you've actually lost the experience. I love that part of it. It's like, oh, it's that mysterious, that eternally mysterious thing where as soon as you realize you're meditating, you're actually not meditating anymore. It's the same thing. One of the key things about finding flow is that it's a spontaneous, unplanned thing that we're not conscious of when it happens. But by knowing more about it and recognizing the times when it does happen for us, we can certainly go about incorporating more of those kinds of activities in our lives to increase the chances of getting in flow. And the other thing we can do is design activities to have certain criteria built into them so that we're more likely to experience, at least partially, that sense of flow when we're doing them. So I'll show you some of that stuff in a moment. If we're looking for ways to increase the quality of our lives and enjoy them more on a daily basis, awareness of flow theory is one way to go about doing that. And in his writing, Mihai says, look, this is one way of increasing happiness, and I personally believe it's characteristic of all experience of happiness. But concentrating on flow is not going to work for everyone. Other people do it by this. So he's very aware that he's simply putting forth a theory about how happiness is created, but he is very open to the fact that there's multiple paths for everyone. One of the interesting things that he found in his research was, of course, not a new phenomenon. In fact, the more he looked into it, he found that it was it's prevalent as a driver of behaviours across the centuries and across all kinds of activities. So the kinds of activities that spring to mind for you when I talk about losing yourself, not being aware of anything else, being completely absorbed, we've already had some wonderful answers. Reading, meditating. Another one would be writing, actually. I experienced definitely some flow moments when I was doing some writing recently. All the things that we've been talking about, you know, the running, the martial arts, the Reiki, the dance, the coaching, all of those things, the painting, the sculpting, all of the things we've been speaking about, these are experiences of getting in flow. It's found in music. It's found in spiritual experiences. It's found in religious practice, creative arts, play, gaming, sporting activities, sex, learning, many, many other places. Mona's asking, what about sunbaking? Mona, I look at the valid question. I would imagine that to be more of an experience of deep relaxation. But if you think about it, there's that kind of the flip side of the coin with sunbaking, isn't there? There's the dangers of the excessive exposure. So, look, without being an authority on this very large area of psychology, I'd say that's probably not. It would be definitely an experience of relaxation and enjoyment. Because if you think about it, when you're sunbaking, you're not completely mentally engaged. You're actually the opposite. You're very, very relaxed. Now, in the teachings of Buddhism and Taoism, they speak about a state of mind known as the action of inaction, or doing without doing, that greatly resembles the idea of flow. In Hindu texts and the yoga of knowledge, they refer to a similar state. Historical sources say that Michelangelo painted the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel in a flow state. He painted for days at a time, and he was so absorbed in his work that he didn't stop for food or sleep until he reached the point of passing out. And after that, he would wake up refreshed, and then when he started to paint again, he would get back into a state of complete absorption and work again for another 3 days or 4 days at a time. Bruce Lee spoke about a psychological state similar to flow and the importance of adaptability and shedding preconceptions in his book, The Tao of Jeet Kune Do. In his book, he compares the state of flow to water. Now, I love this piece. Listen to this because this really explains it. Be like the water. Empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless like water. If you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle and it becomes the bottle. You put it into a teapot and it becomes the teapot. Now, water can flow or it can crash. Be water, my friend. I love that, and I think it gives you a lovely visual picture, doesn't it, and gives you a sense of what flow is all about. Okay, a couple of comments here. Getting in flow is basically meditation. No matter what you do when flow happens, your head is free from thoughts and your awareness is purely in the moment. Yeah, that's right, Etienne. Yeah, okay, cool. Another couple of comments there. All right. No, flow, I've got a comment here that flow is everywhere and everything. It's not. There are those 6 specific characteristics that need to happen for it to be a flow experience or to be classified as a flow experience. So there's a distinction there, okay? Okay, here we go. Layla's saying just go with the flow. All right, so in every given moment there's a great deal of information made available to each individual, and psychologists have found that your mind can only attend to a certain amount of information at a time. Now, you know that stuff that we talk about in NLP about how many bits of information we can take in and how we distort, delete and generalize, that actually was born from a study by this same gentleman, Mihai. And according to his study done in 1956, that number is 126 bits of information per second. Now, that seems like a large number, but if you think about it, even simple daily tasks take quite a lot of information. Just having a conversation takes around 40 bits of information per second, which is about 1/3 of your capacity. And that's why having a conversation when you're deep in conversation, you really can't focus much attention on other things. So that it sort of explains for us where this idea of focus and flow comes together. And for the most part, people are able to decide what they want to focus their attention on, unless there are basic bodily things going on, hunger and pain, or a threat to our safety, which of course we're programmed to instantly pay attention to. However, when you're in the flow state, you're completely engrossed with the one task at hand, and without making a conscious decision to do so, you lose awareness of all other things: time, people, distractions, even your basic bodily needs. And this occurs because all of the attention of that person in the flow state is on the task at hand. There is no more attention available to be allocated. Frank is saying flow is effortless. Yeah, I agree. And the distinction is you can't actually know you're having a flow experience until afterwards, because as soon as you become aware of it, you're not in that state called flow anymore. So a flow state can be entered while performing any activity, although the research has found that it's most likely to occur when you're wholeheartedly performing a task or activity for intrinsic purposes, which is where we get back to what so many of you guys have described, you know, the sporting activities, the creative activities, the quality conversations. Passive activities like taking a bath or even watching TV don't tend to elicit flow experiences, as you tend to have to you need to be doing something generally to enter a flow state. Now, flow theory, there's quite a lot to this theory, so I'm just giving you the basic chunks here. Flow theory says that 3 conditions have to be met to achieve a flow state. You have to be involved in the activity with a clear set of goals and progress. So this adds direction and structure to the task. So John, when you were talking about your running and having your goals, I think that certainly assists in getting you into that flow state because it drives you, it motivates you forward. And having some structure around the task is definitely helpful. The second condition is the task at hand must have clear and immediate feedback. So this helps you negotiate any changing demands and allows you to adjust your performance to maintain the flow state. So this is where those things that are challenging, they take up enough of your attention that you really can't concentrate on anything else, and you're constantly evaluating and re-evaluating your performance and adjusting accordingly. And the third condition is that you have to have a good balance between the perceived challenges of the task at hand and your own perceived skills. That means you have to have confidence that you're capable of doing the task at hand. Layla's asking what was the first one. So Layla, you have to have goals, clear set of goals and progress. The second one is you have to have clear and immediate feedback. So during the activity, you have to have immediate feedback on how you're going. And the third thing is you have to have a good balance between the challenges and your skills. Now, there's a heap of other research. This is an enormous body of research. I'm only just tapping the very, very surface of it. And do you know what? There was even an article in June this year, just a couple of months ago, where some of those conditions for flow were even further defined and reclassified. So there's just an enormous amount of research still going on about this. It really was, this research was at its peak in the 80s and 90s because the discipline of positive psychology became more widely known, and where you're going to find some really interesting research about flow coming out at the moment is in things like companies who produce gaming software and trying to induce a flow state in participants and putting things into the game and making the skill levels hard enough and all of that stuff and inducing a certain amount of awareness and enjoyment, that you're going to find that kind of research being done in that area. It's really quite fascinating where all the different places where this is used. Even with the basic level of awareness we have from one short class tonight, let's think about what this means for designing our lives and helping our clients design their lives to be happier, more fulfilled and meaningful. So tell me, coaches, what does this mean for you? is flow this thing we should all be trying to walk around in all the time? Is it is it something we should be trying to attain, this sort of ecstatic state at all moments in our lives? And by the very practice of focusing on it, we're actually making it impossible to attain. Talk to me. What does this mean for you and how you design your life, and how you can assist your clients in designing their lives to get more general happiness? Angie's saying, I've been known to cringe when I hear the phrase "go with the flow," especially as it's used in a lot of ethereal circles. It seems to me the idea of flow as portrayed by some neglects the notion that we as individuals still have power over our lives. Yeah, right. The idea of flow seems to reek of complacency. I do like the perspectives you've presented tonight in regards to the book, as it does mean we have control and power over our lives. Yeah, and absolutely. And this is why it's so interesting, isn't it? The more you read about this stuff, the more you realise that the distilled down sort of pop culture type ideas of what it means to really be happy, they only scratch the surface of what the actual research and information is all about. And this book was a life changer for me. When I read this book, I realised what were the characteristics of those times of peak happiness in my life, and I came to understand that you can actually design activities to be more like that. Layla, ask the client what they really enjoy doing the most. Yeah, you know what, if you can elicit from the client the kind of activities that they do when they get into that state, that's a great indicator for you about how they can then incorporate more activities like that, or design all activities to be similar to those, so that they can enjoy more of that kind of feeling. John, understanding when to apply it. Yeah, I agree. John, if you're trying to get into a state of flow when you're writing a report at work, it's probably it's not all that useful, really, is it? There's probably other states that would be more useful and more resourceful, wouldn't there? And probably you would get there quicker. Mona, what a classic question. How many hours a week should we aim at being in this state? Mona, there are no rules about how happy you should be and when you should be happy. It's really, Mona, it's more about bringing some conscious awareness to what are the characteristics of these events that we have when we're in that really peak state of happiness. And it helps us to look at our experiences, and especially happiness, as in a qualitative framework. So I really encourage you to go out and get this book. It's pretty heavy reading, but it's well worth the journey. And it really helps you to understand even just everyday life experiences from a qualitative perspective, and to really look at the different layers of quality that we can add so that we have a more general experience of happiness, and ultimately increase our level of having these kinds of experiences, or our likelihood of having these experiences. Lauren's saying, realising what flow can help you find what your path to happiness is. Absolutely. Lauren, I love that. And do you know, I've always, ever since I started as a trainer a long, long time ago, I've always felt like I got into this kind of weird trance state when I was training, and I couldn't really understand what it was. And people thought I was weirdo when I said it. But when I read the book, I went, oh no, that's okay. I'm just having a flow experience. It's all good. Which is lovely, because eventually I designed my whole life to be around training and doing what I love. Lauren just bought the book on eBay. Awesome, Lauren, well done. Adrian, sounds like a part of good preventing or recovering from depression. Yeah, I think, Adrian, it just really brings a laser focus to evaluating the experiences that you have, doesn't it? And rather than experiencing them from a general emotional perspective, it allows you to look at them and measure them on a scale, and say, hey, which ones do I want more of, which ones do I want less of? Yasmin, do the things that feel right, as it ultimately increases joy. Yeah, 100%. And ultimately that's what it's all about, isn't it? Having this very specific understanding actually then allows you to have a more general approach, which says, I'm going to increase my happiness as much as I possibly can. And the wonderful thing about it is it's different for everyone. And you've got to do that introspective work where you really evaluate for yourself, what is it for you? Etienne, it teaches us that you can't think your way into flow. So true. Our mind is a great tool and is part of the process, but there's nothing like performing out of our minds. Yeah, and you have to have, that's the journey with this book. You have to have this conscious awareness of it, and then you nearly need to go 6 months down the track and forget about it all. And then the lovely thing is when you have a flow experience, you actually afterwards go, oh, that was one of those things. Oh, that was another one of those things. And so it just increases your general awareness of when you're having those peak experiences. Sonis, I think if you live your life with passion in everything you do and automatically live in flow, you're successful. At least this is my experience. My focus with clients is to help them see where their passion is. Great. And exactly, this is a way to assist them to do that. Even if you just tell them about those 6 conditions of flow, it helps them to have some conscious awareness about it. Raywin, the name of the book is Flow. And the extended title is Flow, The Psychology of Optimal Experience, I think. Hang on, let me just reach over to the bookshelf. Yeah, The Psychology of Optimal Experience. Okay, a couple more questions. I think I've answered those. Paul, like meditation, the benefits occur both when you're in flow and how you feel when you're not. That's exactly it, Paul. It's actually an unconscious awareness of the experience whilst you're having it, and then an increased level of satisfaction in your life after you've had the experience when you realise you've had one. So like the meditation thing. Okay. So Andrew, the time to be happy is now and the place to be happy is here because all we have is here and now. Yeah, Andrew, and so applying those conditions of flow to your experience and constructing your activities so that you meet more of those conditions increases your ability to, at least on a surface level, increase the happiness, and then on a deeper level occasionally you'll have those flow experiences. Bryony, it brings meaning to following your bliss. Yeah. You know, people run around go follow the flow, follow your bliss. Yeah, that's all lovely, but actually there's some meaning behind it. There's some structure behind it. Okay. Ricardo, thanks for your comment. All right. So there's been a lot of research published about how to best apply flow theory to different activities to improve our experience, as well as the secondary benefits that naturally flow from flow, which include primarily increased overall life satisfaction and happiness, as well as increased performance. So there are very specific benefits that flow from increasing your experiences of flow. And some of the early research, exactly as Adrian had said earlier, indicates that those coming out of depression can dramatically increase their overall life satisfaction over time, and it also definitely increases your performance. And this is something they noticed with the research they did with people like musicians, performers, when they were in that experience of flow, and specifically this research was around, let me remember, soloists working in an orchestra. So someone in an orchestra who stands up and gives a solo performance during that group experience, dramatically better performance when they say, yeah, I kind of lost sense of time, I didn't really know what was going on, as opposed to the nights where they say, yeah, I just wanted to get through that as quickly as possible because I missed a note early on. So it actually increases your performance as well. Now, Mihai's research has gone so far as to have suggested extrinsic applications of the flow concept. For example, design methods for playgrounds to elicit the flow experience. So what we're seeing now in this sort of second generation of flow research is that there's a move towards, as I said before, trying to elicit or attempting to elicit a flow experience from users of certain products like video games, like playgrounds. It even has gone so far as to be applied to designing architecture, designing buildings and public spaces. And reinterpretations of the process to improve performance are used in areas as diverse as business, music, sports psychology, computer programming, even stand-up comedy. There's been a fascinating study done into the use of flow in stand-up comedy. And it also has massive application in education in terms of how activities are designed. So this is actually a really big part of the research, is how to design learning activities for students in the classroom so that they enter a state of flow during certain parts of the lesson, and we tap into those creative energies and help them really do that learning on an unconscious as well as conscious level. Paul's saying I was talking to Ray last night about the use of games as educational tools. Yeah, that's right. Bryony, being in flow means being connected to yourself. Yeah, definitely. In an unconscious way, Bryony. It's if you remember, one of the conditions was that you lose all sense of self-consciousness. And that means not worrying about anyone else. Yeah, that's right, Bryony, higher self. Yep. It's also got application in personal development, professional music, and sports. There's also a massive body of research into flow as a group experience. So when more than one person enters a state of flow, and you know, guys, we see this when we see our favourite sporting team do something absolutely incredible, and afterwards they go, yeah, we don't even know really how we did that. They've just had a group flow experience. And there's there's some wonderful research now being done, which I'm very much enjoying, about using flow in the workplace. So designing activities at work so that people can tap into their creative side and even enjoy flow in the workplace. I think one of the best ways to use this for ourselves is in understanding more about the kinds of activities that lead us to have flow activities, as flow experiences, and recognizing them for what they are after the fact, and designing our lives so that we can increase the likelihood of having those experiences again by designing the way that we set things up for ourselves. And this has very similar application for our clients. So now's the time, guys. Any more questions, comments, thoughts about flow, or indeed anything else? I'd love to hear from you further thoughts about how you might apply this in your own life, or what this might mean for your clients. One of the wonderful things you can do for a client when they're, look, to me, this often tends to happen around session 3 or 4 with a client when they've started breaking down some of their barriers, and whatever it is you're working on with them is starting to work for them, and they have an amazing experience. Maybe you've been working on them with some relationship stuff, and they talk about, wow, we had this great date night, and you know, it was just like when we first dated, and I just lost track of time, and you know, and you know, we went out and played mini golf or whatever it was. If it meets those criteria, you can actually say to them, you know, you just had a magic experience called a flow experience. And it's actually recognized as one of the peak forms of happiness. So congratulations. Looks like, you know, you're tapping back into that happiness again. It's a wonderful thing to bring to someone's attention when they're describing that kind of experience to you. Ricardo's saying use it in a metaphor, as it's up to the client to create change. Yeah, for sure. And ultimately, you're so right, Ricardo, that's exactly what it is, right? Because it is we're all responsible for our own happiness. And so if a client knows what it is that makes them happy and they're choosing to do the opposite, bringing to their attention times when they have been happy and what were the conditions that they set for themselves when they did experience that happiness, and could they reapply that to a different part of their life? In fact, flow, guys, let's use some coaching language, flow is actually a strategy. It's nothing but a strategy, and it's a magical strategy, and it's a strategy that ultimately involves the unconscious as well. But it's a strategy, so you can elicit that strategy and you can reapply it in other parts of their lives. It's definitely going to increase happiness, and it may even increase the likelihood of having that magical flow experience. Any other questions, comments, thoughts? Could someone model flow if they truly believe they haven't had it? Wow, that's a good question, Adrian. I think if someone believes that they've never had an experience of flow, then let's get them just enjoying happiness before we hit them over the head with flow. Yeah. if we concentrate too much on flow, obviously it makes it impossible to have it, but also for a client who perhaps is so deep in whatever unpleasant state they're in, that they believe they've never had an experience of flow, and that's, I guess, possible. Yeah, of course it is. Anything's possible. Then maybe let's take it a step at a time and increase happiness. Help them increase happiness strategies before we go into flow strategies. Layla, being young and innocent again in the playground. I'm in flow when there are ABC Kids programs on. Yeah, Layla, I love it. Do you know what? On my birthday a couple of weeks ago, my wonderful husband bought me, because he knows I love to be a princess, he bought me a plastic tiara and some bubbles, not champagne, but actual bubbles to blow. And we went down to the beach house, and my niece came over to play, and she's 1.5, and I was blowing bubbles with her, and it was the most childlike, silly experience, and it was the happiest I was all weekend. It was wonderful. Returning to that sense of innocence, lovely. Yasmin, when we're travelling and out of our comfort zone, is flow more likely, I wonder? That is a great question, Yasmin. I think it seems to me through the research that something that we find a little challenging or challenging enough to engage us is certainly indicative of a flow experience. But if there was ever a time when we felt threatened, I think that would instantly collapse that experience of flow. I think it's possible at times of travel, yeah. Depends what kind of traveller you are, Yasmin. Awesome. Great questions, guys. Anything else? Ange, I'm wondering if I can take you off mute and discuss that question you sent me today, because I'd rather discuss our coaching questions in the classes, if that's okay. Just give me a yes or no. Ray, I see flow as an intense state of mind where you're completely focused on the task at hand, where everything is channeled towards achieving the desired result. This means that your concentration levels are at their peak and breakthroughs are likely to take place. Yeah, awesome, Ray. Etienne, you got to be on the line, and by entering the flow, the chance of going beyond your comfort zone increases. Yeah, yep. Okay, Ange. All right. So thanks everyone for tonight's flow class. I am going to stop the recording, and for anyone who wants to take off, you're more than welcome. Have a lovely evening.